Good evening. I'm Gittel Hesselberg, Division B Director of District 109, and welcome to the third in the Be a Toastmaster series of webinars. Tonight's webinar is Toastmasters. It's more than just your club. There are two parts to this. In part one, we're going to look at how your club fits into the bigger picture, what the leadership roles are, and how and why you should be a leader. In part two, we're going to look at the other Toastmasters programs other than the clubs. So let's begin. A Toastmasters club, where does it fit? If we think about Toastmasters as a pie and all the clubs are pieces, where does your club fit? Over here? Over here? Maybe over here. It's hard to tell. I prefer to think of Toastmasters as a bullseye, and your club fits right in the center. So what are all those other circles that are surrounding your club? Let's take a look. Where does my club fit in the grand scheme of things? Your club plus other clubs together form an area. An area is generally 4 to 6 clubs, usually in the same geographic area. Exceptions can be made and have been made, but generally 4 to 6 clubs. Areas get together and form a division. A division has to have a minimum of 3 areas. And if we take that division and put it with other divisions, we have a district. So now let's look at leadership. For the club, there's the club executive committee. You know who is at the top of the executive committee? Anybody?
President.
The president, good. And we're going to go down the hierarchy. Who comes underneath the president?
VPE.
Very good. And below the VPE?
PM.
VPM, good. And below the VPM?
PR.
Very good, VPPR. Below that?
And
Now it gets harder.
secretary.
Yes, and then? Who's after secretary?
Sergeant at arms.
No.
Nope. We're
The
missing
treasurer.
treasurer.
Then the sergeant at arms. And there's one more. It's the immediate past president. You're probably wondering why some of these are in red. And the reason is because these 3 officers serve not just on the club executive committee, but they serve in other areas as well. And we're going to see that shortly. What does the club executive committee do? They lead the club. They make the decisions that help guide the club on their path to achieve success. Of course, any decision the club executive committee makes must be ratified by the membership, but it's really the club executive committee that is steering the ship that is the club. Now let's look at the area. The area has an area council. Who's at the top of the area council?
Area director.
Very good. Now it gets a little tricky. Who's underneath the area director? There's the assistant area director, program quality, the assistant area director, club growth, the area secretary. Then we have the club presidents, the club VPEs, and the club VPMs. And as you can see, the presidents and VPEs are still in red. They're going to go further. What does the area council do? The area director is the liaison between the clubs and the district. The area council helps the clubs to achieve success. They are there to assist whenever necessary. Now let's look at the division. For the leadership, we have a division council. Who's at the top?
Division director.
Division director. And then we have, any
The
guess?
assistant.
Assistant
Div-
division director,
direct-
program quality, and assistant division director, club growth. And then we have the area directors. And that's all. That's all we have for the division council. Their job is to support the area directors and support the clubs. And they also work, obviously, with the district. And now we're going to look at district leadership. And this is a little bit different. We're starting at the top with the district director. Below the district director is the program quality director, or PQD. And then we have the club growth director, or CGD. Together, these three form the trio. They are involved with the day-to-day running of the district. They are very, very busy, very involved in Toastmasters. Below the trio, we have the managers. There's an administration manager, a finance manager, and a public relations manager. Together, the trio and the managers, along with the immediate past district director, form the core team. When we add to the core team the division directors and area directors, we have the the district executive committee. And finally, we add in the club presidents and the club VPEs, and we have the district council. There are a lot of people involved in the district council. You can be a leader. How do we do this? Let's start with club leadership. Did you notice that there's one office that's missing from this list? Do you see what it is?
We're not talking about the immediate.
It's the immediate
President,
past,
the immediate past
president. The immediate past president is not elected. The president simply slides into that role after his term is over. And this is a full executive committee. The minimum you need is 3 people: a president, 1 vice president, doesn't matter which one, and a secretary. And those 3 have to be different people. In addition, a president is not allowed to be a treasurer. However, other than that stipulation, an officer can hold more than 1 office. And frequently in smaller clubs, they do. Why should you serve as a club officer? There are 2 reasons. The first is because of the Toastmasters promise. When you join Toastmasters, on the membership application, you signed that you agree to the Toastmasters promise. And among the things that you promised is to serve my club as an officer when called upon to do so. And you don't want to break your promise. The second reason is because it gives you a strong voice in how the club is run. If there's something you don't like, this is a great opportunity to help change things. How do you become an officer? It's simple. There's an election. First, there's a club leadership committee, and they choose the nominees for each of the offices. You are allowed to nominate yourself. You just have to contact somebody on the committee. Nominations will generally then be announced in April, and the election is held at the first club meeting in May. This is for the term that begins July 1st. The officers are elected by a majority of the active members of the club. Why am I saying the active members? Any ideas?
Because if they're not active, maybe they haven't been to meetings for a very long time. They
That's true.
don't know the people.
Yes. Each club can decide how they define an active member and an inactive member. Once you have that decided, whenever you have something important to decide, such as an election, you need a quorum. If you're counting all your members, including the inactive ones, you may not have a quorum. But by limiting elections to the active membership, you will have probably a quorum. So for example, if you have 20 members and only half of them are active, which is really sad, you would need 10 people, you would need 11 people to be a quorum. And if only 10 people are active, you're never going to get that quorum. But if you count only 10 as active members, then you need only 6 for the quorum, and chances are you'll be able to get that. This is club leadership. After the club level, everything else is considered district leadership. One thing I forgot to mention, how do you qualify to be an officer in the club? What's the minimum requirement?
An active member?
Yeah, you have to be a paid member of the club, and that's it. There is a misconception that in order to be president, you have to first serve as one of the other officers. That's not true. Any paid member can run and serve as any of these officers. Now let's look at the district leadership. If you want to be a district leader, you have to apply to the district leadership committee. The deadline for applications is January 31st. In other words, a week from today. There are forms that you need to fill out and submit. You are allowed to nominate yourself. Now, let's look at what the qualifications are to serve. To be an area director, you have to have served, it's recommended that you have served as a president of a club or a VPE for a minimum of 6 consecutive months. But there's no real hardcore requirement, it's a recommendation. The assistant area directors and the area secretary are appointed by the area director. There's no qualifications for that. Next, we have the division director. To be the division director, you have to have served as a club president or VPE for a minimum of 6 consecutive months, and that is carved in stone. The assistant division directors are appointed by the division director, so there's no worry about that. Then we have the managers. The PR manager, the finance manager, and the administration manager. In some districts, all these positions, the area director and on are appointed. In others, they're elected. Let's talk about how we do it in District 109. The area director is nominated by the area council. In other words, the area council holds an election for the next area director. That person who wins the election is officially a nominee and will be appointed by the district director. The division director and the PR manager are elected by the district council. And this will happen at a meeting in May. The finance manager and administration manager are appointed positions. They are appointed by the district director. While there are no hard and fast requirements, the finance manager has to be somebody who's familiar with finance, an accountant or a financial manager, somebody who knows how to handle money. The finance manager is responsible for all the district finances. And it's quite a bit of money. So you want somebody who's trustworthy and who knows what to do. Now let's look at the club growth director and the program quality director. For either of those positions, you have to have served 12 consecutive months as a program quality director, a club growth director, a division director, or an area director. Plus, you have to have served a minimum of 6 consecutive months as a club president. And now for the district director. To be a district director, you have to have served 12 consecutive months during the past 3 years, preferably the past year, as a program quality director, club growth director, division director, or a combination of the 3, as long as it's 12 consecutive months, plus 6 consecutive months as a club president. Why should you be involved in district leadership? First of all, it gives you a chance to help steer the district. You will be responsible for making decisions that will affect the lives of the more than 2,500 members in the district. That's District 109. Obviously, other districts may have different numbers of members. But there's a perk. Let's say you are in the district leadership for District 46. District 46 is New York City and Westchester. If there's an in-person meeting, you hop in your car, you drive to Manhattan or Brooklyn or wherever it is. The district will reimburse you for parking and for your mileage, and that's very nice. But if you're in the leadership of District 109, an in-person meeting could be held in Rome or Vienna or Athens, and the district will pay most, if not all, of the airfare at hotel bills. So that's a nice little perk that you get for being part of the district leadership. And really, the district is high as most people will go. But wait, there's more. At the top, this says Toastmasters districts, but this map is really a map of the regions. There are 14 regions in Toastmasters. Each region has an advisor. We are going to look at the regional offices just as an overview, not go into it in depth. The region advisors serve a role where they are supporting, coaching, and mentoring the district leaders. Primarily the district director, the program quality director, the club growth director, and the PR manager. The region advisors are appointed by the board of directors. They serve a 15-month term, starting April 1st, and then going a year and then some to the following June 30th. They support the districts. The qualifications, and these are not all the details. These are just some of the prerequisites for being a region advisor. You have to have served 1 year as a club growth director or program quality director, 1 year as a district director, and 1 year as the immediate past district director. So you're going to be in the high-level district leadership for 3 years before you have a chance of being a region advisor. And then we have the board of directors. Each director serves a 2-year term. Half of the directors are elected 1 year and half are elected the following year. So you never have all new directors at the same time. There's one director from each region. To be a director, you have to have served 1 year as district director and 1 year as immediate past district director. And then at the top of the board of directors, we have the international officers. There's the executive committee, strategic planning committee, and finance committee. And that is all the officers. And who are they? There's the international president, the international president-elect, the first vice president, the second vice president, the immediate past international president, and finally, the CEO, who is a non-voting member of the officers. The election for the international president-elect, the first vice president and second vice president, happens at the International Convention in August. Each of these serves for 1 year. At the end of the year, the international president-elect moves into the international president position. In order to be an international officer, you have to have served as a director for 2 years. And of course, there's a lot more requirements than just that. But that's the basics.
What is the difference between the international president and the president-elect?
It's an interesting way of doing things in Toastmasters. We elect the president-elect, and then he remains as the president-elect for 1 year. And then after that year, we elect a new president-elect, and the old president-elect becomes president. It's not like the United States government, where we elect a president in November, and he's the president-elect until January when he becomes the president. This is somebody who serves on the board as an officer for a full year as the president-elect. You're probably wondering why we do this. I have no idea. Do you have any other questions before we move on to part 2?
Just curious about money for Toastmasters. Like, what do they use it for? For the conventions, for the contests, for...
Okay. First of all, you already heard that we use some of the money to pay for hotels and airfare for district meetings. There's usually one in-person meeting per year. There's also, if you're talking about the money that goes to the district, or are you talking about all the money that Toastmasters accumulates?
District, international.
Okay, so all the money that is paid into the dues to the international headquarters, a portion of it goes back to the district to use for the travel and airfare, to use for contests, to use for demo meetings and open houses, and certain other expenses. The spring conference. The rest of the money is used to pay the salaries of the people who work for Toastmasters. And there are quite a few, and from what I understand, they're hiring more. So all those people that you deal with in the new clubs department, the education department, the people who work in the finance department, the legal department, all those people have to get paid. And the CEO, of course, has to get paid, and he gets paid quite a bit. So that money does get used. It's, yes.
Why do they use paid people? Just because it has to be, everything has to be like legal and in order, and
you're dealing with an organization of more than 100,000 members. You're not going to get volunteers to handle everything. Most organizations that I am aware of do have a paid staff. So Toastmasters is no different in that regard. Also, the magazine that Toastmasters publishes they pay the writers. So that's a very nice thing. A lot of organizations use volunteer writers. So it's a nice little thing that Toastmasters does. Any other questions? Then we're going to go on. It's not just clubs. Are you aware of Toastmasters' other programs?
There is the Odyssey. I know about that.
Okay, that's not a Toastmasters program.
That's
That's a district program run
Okay.
by one of the districts.
No.
Okay. Most people aren't. There's Speechcraft, Youth Leadership Program, Gavel Clubs, and the Accredited Speaker Program. We're not going to go terribly in depth into any of these, but we will take a look. What is Speechcraft? I like to think of Speechcraft as a cross between boot camp and Toastmasters Lite. Why do I say that? Because Speechcraft is a 4, 6, or 8-week program. Whoever is sponsoring it can decide which length they want to run it for. And other than the first week, the Speechcrafters, which is what we call the participants, have to do a speech at every meeting, once a week. So, and that way it's like boot camp because they're doing a speech a week. And most of us in Toastmasters do not do a speech every week. Not only are they delivering a speech, but they also do evaluations, they participate in table topics, and they introduce each other. So they learn a lot in the Speechcraft program. Why do I say it's Toastmasters Lite? First of all, there's no counter and no grammarian. Second of all, the speeches are shorter. The icebreaker speech is 2 to 3 minutes. The other speeches are 3 to 5 minutes. Evaluations are 1 to 2 minutes, and table topics are half a minute to a minute and a half. So everything's a little shorter, but it's still a lot of work. What does Speechcraft look like? Looks kind of familiar, doesn't it? It looks a lot like Pathways. You cannot toggle back and forth between the two, but because we know how to do Pathways, we can probably work our way through Speechcraft. This is the board for the coordinator, and this is for the Speechcrafters themselves. So what's in it for the participants? First of all, they get a crash course in public speaking, which is something wonderful. A lot of places would charge a lot of money for that. Second, if after the Speechcraft program is over, they decide to join a Toastmasters club, they get Pathways credit for what they did in Speechcraft. If they do 1 speech, they get credit for an icebreaker. If they do 4 speeches, they get credit for level 1 completion. And if they do 7 speeches, they get credit for level 1 completion, plus introduction to Toastmasters mentoring, plus 2 level 3 electives. So in 8 weeks, they do what it takes the rest of us in Toastmasters months to accomplish. So it's nice for those who do join Toastmasters. What's in it for me? If I'm the person coordinating Speechcraft, what do I get out of it? Well, if somebody is working toward becoming a DTM, a distinguished Toastmaster, there's a lot that has to be done to become a DTM. And one of those things is to be a club sponsor or conduct a Speechcraft or a youth leadership program. So if you conduct Speechcraft, you have already fulfilled a requirement toward DTM. And what's in it for my club? This is the biggie. Speechcraft is a fundraiser. Speechcraft costs $50, but you charge the participants as much as you want, but up to $90. So you can have as many as 5 participants. And if you charge each one $90, that's $450. Minus the $50 you spent for the program, that's $400. Even if you spend some money on advertising, it's still a nice chunk of change for your club. So Speechcraft has a lot of benefits. Now let's look at the Youth Leadership Program, which, if you'll remember from about 30 seconds ago, is also can be a requirement for DTM. You can do Speechcraft or Youth Leadership or be a club sponsor. Youth Leadership is an 8-week program for teenagers, and it is frequently done in conjunction with a school. It could be during school hours, after school, before school if anyone wants to wake up that early, or on weekends. The program is 8 weeks long, where they learn about leadership and public speaking. Interpersonal communication is a program that can be used on its own or in conjunction with youth leadership. Those people I know who have run a youth leadership program say it's extremely rewarding and a lot of fun. I have not done it. I have participated in Speechcraft, and that too is a lot of fun. Now let's look at gavel clubs. Gavel clubs are for those who can't join Toastmasters. So who can't join Toastmasters? Well, first of all, people under the age of 18. You have to be 18 years old to be a Toastmaster. But gavel clubs are not necessarily just for teenagers. People who are incarcerated cannot join Toastmasters because generally they have no access to the internet. And if they're in, say, a maximum security prison, they have little contact with the outside world. Similarly, people who are in a psychiatric facility might not necessarily be able to join a Toastmasters club. Gavel clubs are very nice, but they cannot have speech contests. They can have their own club contests, and it's possible for gavel clubs, a couple of different clubs, to join together to have contests, sort of similar to an area contest, but it's strictly unofficial. Gavel club members cannot participate in any district activities. So it's really for those who can't join Toastmasters. There's something very interesting about gavel clubs, and this is, I think, of particular interest to those of us who've been around since before Pathways. Here's a list of the materials for gavel clubs. The educational materials are the competent communication and competent leadership manuals, commonly referred to as CC and CL. This is what all Toastmasters used to use before Pathways, but now it's the gavel clubs. So this is a good program. We know it's a good program because we all know this program. So I found this very interesting. Finally, there's one more program, and that's accredited speakers. This is a big deal. This is a really big deal because this is recognized by the world outside of Toastmasters. If you are an accredited speaker, you have arrived. What do you have to do? There are 2 levels. For level 1, you have to have completed 25 speaking engagements in 3 years. Those speaking engagements have to be to non-Toastmasters audiences. There has to be at least 20 members in the audience for each one, and at least 15 of them have to be paid. You have to submit a video. The video has to be 20 to 60 minutes in front of a live audience. I think Zoom counts also. And it has to be a professional quality video, not like what we're doing right now. You have to have recommendations. You need 5 of them, and it has to be from clients who paid you to do the speech. And finally, there's an application fee, and it's $100. And that sounds like a lot, but if you're getting paid to speak, chances are the $100 isn't really that bad. That's level 1. Judges will look at the video and take a look at your recommendations and all your application. And if you pass, you move on to level 2. For level 2, if you want to continue, there's another application fee, and this one is $150. And then you have to do a 15 to 18-minute speech live at the international convention. You do this in front of a panel of judges. And if they accept you, and they don't accept everybody, if you have attended the international convention, you will see that there are probably 2 or 3 people who apply for the accredited speaker. It's not a lot because it's difficult to do that. And they don't pass everybody. But if they do pass you, you get that accredited speaker designation. And that really does mean a lot. Are there any questions? We went through these programs very briefly just to give you an overview. But are there any questions about them that I will try to answer? Okay, in that case, I hope to see everybody on February 28th for the next in this series, and it will be Pathways, Finding Your Way Through the Projects. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.